Ladies and gentlemen, just before we start another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast, just a reminder for those who are listening on YouTube that we are now on Spotify. So please head down into the link in the description and check us out there. On with the episode.
Like I could say a lot about, just learn how to get your wrist behind the ball, or learn how to, if you're learning to operate in the best way that you possibly can, that's the biggest advantage you'll have on anyone else. Like, that will carry over into everything. Skill, the physical attributes that you'll have, everything, mindset. Like, if you're explorative and willing to go to that place that other people aren't, that's a huge advantage.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Fitzness Academy podcast. In front of me today, I've got not only Sonny Baker, a Somerset professional cricketer, I've also got someone who bowls 40 mile an hour quicker than I do. So, Sonny, mate, welcome to the Fitzness Academy podcast, mate. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
No worries, mate. So, obviously, starting us off, ladies and gents, always the icebreaker question. I actually made a bit of a mistake, and I'll admit that to myself straight away. Sonny, you actually weren't meant to see the question, but it might have given him a bit of just everyone take his answer with a pinch of salt, because normally not everyone gets the opportunity to see it. So if you had a late night talk show, who would you have on your first guest? And I'm going to throw you under the bus again, mate, straight away.
Yeah.
I saw on your Instagram, I saw, when Sonny was at the 100, taking notes from fellow fast bowlers as well. So I was like a notepad in his poster there. So I think you might have some answers for me here, mate. Go on.
I probably wouldn't go cricket related, really. I'd probably go with, just because I've recently read his book, I'd have gone with David Goggins. I'm sure you've heard of him, or if not, he's the mental bloke who's done all sorts of Marines and Navy SEALs, everything.
Mental stuff.
Mental stuff. Yeah. And I think, to ask him some questions about that would be pretty cool. And really enjoyed his book. It was a great read. So recently gifted it to my dad as a Christmas present. So I think it'd be worth
reusable gift as well. I don't know if I could have David on. I think he's a bit too serious for me. I'm not too serious, and I'm not serious enough for that bloke. So, anyway, so on to the semi-serious stuff then.
Yeah.
Obviously, Sonny, I know a bit about yourself, and I'm sure everyone else does as well. But do you want to give everyone a brief overview of yourself from minor counties playing in Devon to playing at the 100, and obviously still only 19 years old, by the way, ladies and gents, which is a bit scary, really. So, crack us on, mate.
Yeah,
crack on.
Started playing cricket in year 4 or 5, and then because I was pretty average at the rest of the sports I tried to play at that age. I'm still so bad outfield football. Honestly, the amount of chat I get is a joke. So I'm horrendous.
Not playing for Torquay's not Torquay not hiring you down the right hand side, are they?
No chance. Oh no, honestly, terrible footballer. But like I said, tried to give that a go. That didn't work. Then tried out in goal in primary school, and we had 2 teams, and I was going to be on the C's, I reckon, as third choice, the third keeper there. But would have been in if there was a C team. But then
Scott Carson styles, just third choice keeper. Just everyone loves having him about.
Relentless, 100%. But then did a little bit of tag rugby and stuff. But then I was into cricket, really. Just love bowling quick. Always naturally had a bit of pace. Just blessed with that. And then went in thereafter. Did a bit of South Devon cricket stuff. Was second choice bowling up the hill into the wind. And then eventually opened the bowling for South Devon. Then went into the Devon side pretty quick after that. And then moved on through that period of time. I was then on the PSPP. I think under 15s was the time where my pace started to really stand out relative. And then was on the PSPP, which was you're not quite good enough for the academy bracket. So you're not going to be signed at Somerset, but you're on this PSPP, which is a bracket below for players outside of Somerset. Sorry. So whether that's Dorset, Cornwall, or Devon, obviously. And then, was trying to compete for an academy place for a couple of 3 years. By the time I was in lower sixth, I was thinking more about university and what I was going to be doing after that. So I was looking to make an application I did make an application to Oxford for biology. Unsuccessful, like many people were. But then, so
I didn't know that, mate. I was nice little surprise that was. I was going to say it. Having an Oxford academic on as well. Jeez, killing a few birds with one stone here.
No, I don't know about that. I'm just ambitious. I think that it's fair to say. But I gave
no harm in it. No harm in it.
Go. Gave that a good go. And I was pretty sure that I was going to be a biology teacher and then maybe do a bit of coaching first team stuff on the side. Was where I wanted to be. So obviously, I was at King's at the time. Was thinking, if there was a private school like out in South Africa, like St. Cillian's, for example, go over there, coach first team cricket and rugby, and then just do that whilst being a biology teacher. And then, got put on the academy the winter after that. And then 9 months post that, I was up at Trent Rockets. So that happened pretty quick. But, like the work I'd put in before that put me in a position to be able to, pretty meteoric rise to that point, really. But beforehand, it was a lot of hard work. Like I said, in lockdown, I've mentioned before, Andrew Griffiths at Somerset was amazing through that period of time. Like, best support. Like, he's still my go-to man. Like, he's just amazing through that period of time. Like, I think he was officially meant to be on furlough just quietly, but he was pretty much like had two people on the academy at that point. And then, I was like, okay, I can do a bit of coaching for you. Did a bit of technical work at the nets at Torquay. And then, like I said, then did the 100 stuff with the Rockets. Obviously didn't play, but was fantastic experience to be around a professional environment like that. And like you said, off my Instagram, the notes I was taking off Choudhry as like such a wealth of experience you can get from players, especially in that environment where, because they're at the top of their game, they're more than happy to share things, especially Wahab, like obviously being an older, more experienced player, like he was just very open. Any questions I asked, was very thorough with his answers and very generous with the information he gave me. And then after that, did a bit of England under-19 stuff. I'd been involved previously with the winter before, doing a little bit of I was the only player in the North team who was the most Southern player there. Like somebody dropped out from injury of the North versus South, and of the most Southern player out of anyone there, I was rocked up, started playing for the North guys because they were a player down, and then then got involved the year after. The tour to Australia in April was cancelled, so then the year after was obviously with all the guys who are my age or younger, and then had a series at home against the West Indies in Kent. That was really good. Led the attack there with Josh Boyd, and that was really good fun. Like, loved that. Played, I think it was 4 out of the 6 games or 5 out of 6 games, which was really good. Just crazy playing against players from another country for the first time. Like, the energy their team had was just, it was very different to anything I'd ever experienced before. And then, went out to Sri Lanka after that to do a return to bowling program, because I'd been scanned and I'd had a stress response after the season in my back, which is pretty standard. It's just a bit of inflammation. Like, after bowling, I think it was 700 and something overs that year. Makes sense that there was a bit of inflammation around bone when there's I think they found the cause there. Just on a side note, I think they might have found maybe some sort of correlation. I think
something.
And then went out, did my return to bowling stuff out in Sri Lanka. Didn't play any of those games, which was obviously a bit frustrating because of not being allowed to, based off my return to bowling off that injury. Went out to the West Indies in January with the 19s, and then felt something a little bit funny after the first over of the first warm-up game, and I was like, oh, surely not. Waved on the fears. I was like, oh, is something going seriously wrong here? Finished the over and then came off for the rest of the game. And then 4 days later, I was on a plane home by myself, and that was the size of it. Watched the rest of the boys in the final on TV, which was a bit tough, but yeah, boys did so well throughout that competition. Like, everyone worked so hard in the build-up, and it was really impressive to see how well they did. Really, unfortunately, lost in the final to India, who had looked a proper side. But yeah, that was an experience for sure. And then, like I said, a couple of weeks after I got home, I was in a corset-looking thing, like a back brace, which was from my sternum down to my top of my hip, to try and restrict the amount of movement, so I didn't aggravate any soft healing bone. But yeah, that was certainly an experience. Then did my return to bowling with Somerset. From then up until the Royal London competition, where I did like a play rest. So I'd make sure my spine got enough time to recover. Then obviously injury replacement in the 100 for Southern Brave after Tymal Mills and Chris Jordan and Joffre all went down, and there you go, suddenly involved in that, and ended up playing 3 out of the 4 games I was there for. So it was a pretty quick and crazy experience.
Ladies and gents,
really lucky.
This is at 19 years old. So like, just saying that. So like, he's still got a fair bit. So mate, he's gonna have an autobiography by 21. Mate, the bit which I want to start right at the beginning, because I think once I went over to uni for the first time and I started playing uni cricket, and seeing some guys who had maybe been to King's College before or been to other sort of schools of that nature before, and playing against them, like people like Jack Spanton and stuff like that. It's incredible to see how, like, sort of you guys almost it sounds weird, but cut from a different cloth in a way. Does it give you confidence when you actually go to school like that you're going to get the very best sort of education and sort of cricketing skill training at the same time?
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, it's a fantastic opportunity. Being at a school like that, where you have an opportunity. Like I said, it's not guaranteed that just because you've got those facilities, you'll actually put the work in and, you know, get yourself into a position where you can get a professional contract. But the opportunity to train like a professional before that at school is, fantastically lucky, and very privileged to have been able to get that. And, you know, the track record Kings have got is pretty crazy, really. I mean, specifically in Taunton, you've got a lot of private schools that are really close together. So you've got obviously Millfield, Kings, and Taunton School also. Obviously Tom Abel from Taunton School, Casey Aldridge, Lewis Goldsworthy from Millfield, Smeedy from like, you can carry on. It's a lot of like I said, private schools around here, and the competition's very high. So it is definitely an advantage being here. There's no question about that. And yeah, the guys at Kings, like I was an S&C and sprints coach, Mr. Shaw was amazing through lockdown also, and beforehand, to get me in a position to be able to play in my first Royal London competition and bowl at real pace. Like, did some real good running mechanics work with him, which was amazing, put me in a really good place to where I am now. And then that's not mentioning Woody and Phil Lewis, who are both fantastic coaches in their own right, and, you know, really good cricket program they got there. So it's pretty outstanding, really.
Yeah, not too bad. The transition then to going on the academy, because then obviously you mentioning working and grafting for those few years leading up until you actually signed on the academy. I suppose there's a whirlwind of emotions going through, because I'm just imagining it in my head being like, right, cool, right, am I ever going to get a contract? Right, am I ever going to sort of get the opportunity to play? How do you almost kind of push on when you see others, like maybe from Kings or other schools, getting those opportunities in academy, maybe even in second team or first team?
Well, I think it just comes down to, like, it's your choice. You can choose to do it or you can choose not to do it. So, you know, everybody realistically knows what the right thing to do is. You know whether you're eating the right things. You know whether you're going to bed at the right time. You know whether you're recovering properly. You know whether you're doing the gym sessions that you're prescribed. Like, if you're choosing not to do those things, that's your decision. And if you're choosing to do those things, then fair play, that's also your decision. So same as like I said, when I had a stress fracture also when I was, I think it was 16, 17. Like, I was just like, okay, I'll join the swim team then, and then did a bit of swimming with the swim team. I'm still very average, but like, there's ways to go about it. Like, when you're walking past a rugby pitch and everyone else is playing rugby, and you're thinking, oh, I really want to do that, but I've also got a watt bike session that I need to do, and I'm going to go and do that instead. So, like I said, you make your own choices, and I think it's just being aware of what the right things are to do, and I think everybody knows that realistically, and it's just making those choices for yourself and hoping that it will pay off in the long term. And I'm very lucky that I've got quite a lot of rewards early from doing that.
Do you reckon it's because everyone speaks about this sort of don't try and sort of narrow someone off too early, and they should be able to play as many sports as possible? Do you reckon you would have got to, at the moment where you are, I say got to where you are today, again, bearing in mind Sonny's age, where you are today with the opportunities that you would have got to sort of win, if you would have played rugby, or maybe if you would have been able to, I don't know, maybe play other sports as well? Obviously it's a benefit in some way where you can focus on cricket, yes, which is fantastic, but at the end of the day, you're a human being at the end of the day, and yes, you've got this talent, but it's obviously important to experience other things, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends, again, what your personality type is as well, I think. So for me, I'm quite obsessive. Like, I'm really happy just getting really stuck into one thing. And don't get me wrong, I played other sports along the side. I just didn't do it very well. Like, I played a bit of rugby, and then in 6-1, when I was put onto the academy, I thought, tell you what, I think me getting broken playing rugby would be something that I definitely regret. So it's not like I'm 6'7" and absolutely jacked. So I thought I'll probably park that, because there will be some blokes who are 6'7" and absolutely jacked who want to, write you off and find it quite funny. So I thought I'll probably park that for now. But like I said, just I think it depends on who you are. Like, throwing javelin probably helped me from when I was younger. Like, doing a little bit at Talkie Boys at like on sports day and stuff. Like, did a little bit of training for that, and then coming to Kings, I was, like I said, throwing at sports day, and someone's gone, oh, you can throw all right. Did a bit of work with Mr. Llewellyn on javelin throwing, and then that got to a point where I'd stopped doing that, because obviously in javelin you have to rotate a lot to create a lot of force, because the only interest is how far you can throw it. Whereas in cricket it's more based on where you put the ball, and also what speed. So the difference for me was like my shoulders working round the side like that, versus in cricket where I'm working over the top like this. And that was my reason for parking javelin, and then rugby was injury related.
Couple of above waist height no balls as a result of them javelin training. Am I right there, Sonny?
Flatties, proper beamers. Yeah, over the keeper's head.
Sorry, mate. Yes, it was a javelin. It was a javelin. Sorry, mate. Mate, Sonny, you throwing it for 6, mate. Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry.
Got confused for a second there, boys.
Sorry. Wrong sport, sorry. No, in terms of then going and signing your first sort of, was it rookie deal, I suppose, and then playing One Day Cup in 2021, does it all, I know it's cliche and you're saying, it was all well worth it and stuff like that, but I suppose it's almost the start of the new journey of working even harder, because when you're getting to that level, you just realise that you can do it, and it's about just pushing on and sort of being able to reach your maximum potential.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, mate, when I first found out that I'd got a rookie contract, I got called in by Andy Hurry here, who's a director of cricket, and he said, I thought it was just a catch up, because it was like me and my parents, and it was just a little review of where you are. And then when he said, I'm going to put you out your misery, I was like, oh no, like my face dropped for a second. He was like, no, we're going to offer you a rookie contract. And I just cried. Honestly, I just cried. I was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. It was only a little bit after, like I played a few pre-season games. This is before the Royal London had started, like that I knew I'd been signed. It was released after the Royal London, but I'd not even finished my A-levels yet. And I was still pretty convinced I was going to be a biology teacher and maybe do a bit of coaching first team cricket. And I just cried my eyes out. I couldn't believe it. And then, like I said, it all comes down to what opportunity you have. So here now, I've got even more opportunity to train like a professional, because you're in a professional environment and you've got the facilities to do the right things and what's the best for you. And more time also. So it's very weird coming out of school, having the most regimented day ever, where you're up at 6:30 to swim or go to the gym, or up at 7 latest to go and have breakfast, then to start, and everything begins on from there on. And then, doing your homework stuff up until 9-10 o'clock at night, and then go to bed. That's it. The whole day is busy. And then when you come out of that and you've had your summer off and just played a season in the Royal London, then ended up at the Rockets and stuff, and then come back home and it's like, right, what do I do now? I've got so much free time. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. And yeah, it still feels like that now, really. I've applied to Open Uni. I'm going to be starting very shortly. So I'm studying biology. So that'll give me a bit more of a clear layout of what's going on. But I thought I'd give myself a summer in the sun and have a bit of fun for a year. So I wasn't intending to have as much free time as I had this summer at the start of it anyway. But it turned out that way.
Okay. Mr. Baker's still on then, I'm guessing. Mr. Baker, Mr. Biology.
Oh, yes,
biology teacher's still coming.
Yeah. Could do, I don't know.
I suppose it's
whatever.
Well, you never know. I'm going to be seeing another post in a couple of years' time, just saying with your graduation, saying you're a new biology teacher as well.
Got the little hat and everything.
Fastest bowling biology teacher in the world. Fastest bowling biology teacher. Does it help though having like a little distraction? Because I know for a fact that if I have a good game, a bad game, a good net or a bad net, I'm overthinking the living daylights out of it. I need to just switch off from cricket. I know I find it really difficult, but is it in your nature to kind of try and force yourself to, forget about cricket for a couple of hours, or, I suppose it's within your nature being a professional to having to think about your game all the time, but just to kind of force yourself.
Well, I mean, I'm still learning about that now, to be honest, because obviously the danger with being really obsessive and switched on and thinking about things in a very detailed way, which is what I try to do. I pride myself on doing that, very diligent. So I've looked into baseball stuff a little bit and gone, yeah. So anyway, yes, basically, but I'm still learning how to do that. So for me, I quite like just walking the dogs, get away from it for a bit, go for a walk, spend a bit of time with family. That's normally my approach to get away from it. So, but yeah, I'm still trying to learn a balance in terms of what works best for me. So if you think about the analogy I always use is if you think about Tiger Woods, or you think about Johnny Wilkinson, or you think about any high-performing business person, how time efficient their day will be of getting their work that they need to do done, you can't compete with that. So if someone's training in that way and thinking in that way, I think that's an advantage, not a disadvantage. If you can, be considering things, but like you said, it is very important to have that off button also. I read Johnny Wilkinson's autobiography, and yeah, that was a real thing that I took away from it, was he felt like he could never take the shirt off. That was a big thing for me, where I went, oh, that's pretty relatable. Same thing in the book of Pace by the Pace Journal. I've just done an interview series with.
It's all going to be linked in the description, by the way, because I've seen a couple of the posts so far. I know he's got a few more days left of content. It's unbelievable as well. So make sure you check out as well.
Yeah, the build up was awesome. But yeah, anyway, I said in that book, he also said, Shahbaz said about how he's had a conversation with someone and they just went, oh, can we just not talk about fast bowling for a second? And I was reading that and I went, oh my God, that is the most relatable thing I've ever heard. Just constantly thinking about it and processing things and trying to think about how you can do things better. I'm a proper sucker for that. So it's important to learn about what works best, because some people can tolerate that. So again, you look at Johnny Wilkinson, you look at Tiger Woods, you look at how diligent and meticulous they are with everything. But their performance would suggest that they can tolerate it pretty well. So it's just finding out. I think the way I want to try and approach it is push it as far as you can go. And then once you get to a point where it's like, oh, your sessions aren't productive, you're constantly feeling tired, you don't feel alert during the sessions you're actually doing. Is there any point in doing the notes that you're doing on this particular topic? Is that actually adding to your game? And if it isn't, then that's your time to go, right, I'll pull back from there slightly. Because then you find out what your maximum point is. That's what I want to try and do. It's the approach I'm looking to take, and it will be a constant thing to try and learn where that point of optimum for me is. But I think it's different for everyone. Some people will be able to tolerate way more than I can.
Yeah, exactly.
So, look at David Goggins, prime example. Talk about tolerance, like that'll be right up the far end. So it's just finding your point. I think that's my opinion anyway. People will.
Yeah, like you said, it's so individual, isn't it? Like you said, I think speaking of Shahbaz, when I actually had him on the podcast as well, and he kind of reckons that when he had his sort of chance to become professional, he was almost thinking cricket 24/7, 365. He actually ended up having a longer hiatus out of the game because of what had actually sort of led him to that point where he was skipping sessions or trying to get away, which he then looks back on and sort of, he said was a regret for him, but now he's been able to sort of switch away from that and find his own balance. Obviously, as I said, it's very individual. I kind of try and, I think I'm very fortunate to not get sick of cricket, but as soon as I start feeling mentally down about something, a performance that has just gone past, I have to switch off, because then, my mentality is right, that's done now, so I'm not going to be able to affect what's just happened. So 100%. Why don't I focus on what's in front of me? So, and as soon as I start thinking about that last performance, I realize I need to have a break from it and kind of switch off, because I know that I can't change it. So why am I going to I've not got the biggest amount of brain cells, so why am I going to waste them up using on something that's gone already?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, it's 100%. I think the biggest thing is, like you said, having that conscious downtime. So I am parking it now. But for me to do that, my dad's exactly the same. Whenever we're on holiday, he'll, in the morning, for 10, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, be doing all his emails and all his admin. And then once that's done, he'll then, right, okay, I can settle in and park it now. Whereas before that, it's, if you try and relax when you haven't fully done that, that's when it can be a challenge, I think.
Yeah. Like you said, I think it depends. I think trying to, that's one thing. It wasn't a high performance podcast. I think it was just a personal trainer's podcast, and he was kind of saying how you trying to switch off, and I think that's different for everyone. For someone that's exercising more, for someone that's exercising less, if they're working within that physical field. So I think it's so individualized. So I think it just depends. So what's one way you switch off then? Like you said, apart from walking the dogs, in terms of maybe during a season, I think this is quite. I didn't really write this down as a point, but I run the show, so it's a benefit.
Yes, you do.
How can you switch off during a busy summer? Like you said, I think it's quite an interesting fact that normally the Royal London One Day Cup now has become quite renowned for younger players getting opportunities within their counties. Yeah, you absolutely. Kind of went left field of that and ignored that and just went straight into the 100 as a replacement player. So you kind of, it didn't allow you that sort of chance to have that, but obviously allowed you a lot of time to reflect. So how do you kind of switch off, especially in an environment where you're moving all around all the time, you're traveling all the time, and you're doing all of this stuff?
Well, I mean, for me, it's doing a review of the game. So once, like I said, it's almost like my dad doing his emails in the morning. Once I've done my review of the game, I can park it. I know I've covered all my bases. I've had a complete reflection of the game overall, where I would approach it differently next game, what that looks like, aims for next game, and then, okay, done everything now. What else am I going to think about? Because I've gone through it all, I'm 100% sure I've done it. I'm not sure if I have it in this book, because I recently filled up one of my books, but it might be in here somewhere. He's had notes ready as well, ladies and gents. He's got notes ready as well, ladies and gents. I'm absolutely loving this. Well, you got some notes on batters and stuff in there. Like fields and stuff. That's the superchargers. This one, obviously you get that from the analyst before the game, and then post game. Like I said, for the first game I got back from the Royal London, thankfully everyone forgets it because I got 6 for the game after. But I was 0 for 38 off 1.5 overs. They chased 130 down in 12 point something overs. Well, 12.5, I think. And we, bowled out for 130 in 50 overs, and then they smacked it. And it was a pretty difficult game for myself, having just come back from injury. I'd bowled something like 11 competitive match overs beforehand. And I was very much rabbit in headlights because I bowled like a front foot no ball as well. And I was like, oh my goodness, the wheels are coming off. So the reflections I had from that game is I didn't have a chance to go, right, he's just run down the pitch and banged me for 6 over mid wicket. That's never happened to me before in my life. Okay, what can I do now? And it's like, well, I thought about bowling a cutter because it's a bit of an abrasive surface, and I didn't, because I was like, no, just bump him, just bowl a Yorker. That's your go-to. Just do those. So my reflection from that game was like taking the time in between to reflect on what was going on, and then mixing my pace when someone's coming at me is always a good option. So then once I'd done that, I could park it, because my approach was also like, one of my notes from that was also, forget it. You're ready to play. You might have bowled 11 overs and feel undercooked and all of this, but thinking that way is not going to help you. You have to park it. You're ready to go now. You're ready.
Yeah.
And then,
that's like
felt ready the next game.
Sorry to interrupt you there, because I've just thought of something that's just come to mind. And like sort of a lot of players kind of speak about volume before a game. And you look at the test and the Amazon documentary, and it kind of said, like, David Warner says he only like
stuff like that,
he doesn't like to hit too many balls before a game, because he feels like that gets him into a bit of a bad rhythm, how he has confidence in himself. Do you reckon that also, like, coming from a club like Somerset where you've got some absolute superstars, does that vary from person to person? Because let's be honest with ourselves, I don't think Tom Banton's going to be reverse sweeping 20 balls the day before a game or the day of a game, because he's had that confidence ready to play that shot whenever he wants.
Yeah, I think for batters it's obviously a little bit different. Like, it's easier to get a bit more superstitious about stuff, whereas from bowlers it's more of a physical point of view and an execution point of view. Like, for me, there was a concept in The Pressure Principle by Dave Allred. That's a great read, by the way. Was you'd either have your like fixing sessions or your training. So where your training is under pressure execution, and then you'd have your like practice. You'd have your repair sessions, which are, I feel like this, just not quite nailing X delivery. I really want to practice that and isolate that. Not bowl at batters, got no interest. I just want to execute and groove that skill, or Yorkers, or whatever that looks like, whether it's a way swing, having come back into red ball cricket after a block of white ball, having those two separate sessions where before a game, you're not going to do a training session. You do a repair session to make sure everything's grooves and optimal for that game. And if physically you don't feel like you need to bowl because it's 2 championship games, for example, and in this one you bowled 40 overs and you just want a bit more rest before the next Monday, that makes perfect sense as well. So it's just about it's more about what you need for your preparation. So like you said, for Bance, for example, I haven't spoken to him in depth about it, but he is very aware of what he needs to do. So if he needs to hit 10 balls before the start of the game, that's what we do. If he nails all 10, which most of the time he does because he's an outstanding player, he'd go, thanks very much. I'm ready to go. Cheers, everyone. I'm going to go back inside and I'm ready to go. And some people like to hit a bit more before games. That's just what they do. It really does depend on the person. Like you said, it's very individual, and just learning what your needs are, what you need at that time is really important. But you also don't want to just be bowling balls or hitting balls for the sake of it, because you're not performing. So it's important to make sure it's all, if it is a repair session, it's right, I need to repair this one thing, so I'm going to groove that. Okay, that's better. Found what my cue is to execute in game, and then build up a bit of confidence.
What about then those changes that you just mentioned? Because I overthink this a hell of a lot, where as soon as it's gone well for a while, but then I have a game where it's not gone too well and I've had a bit of a smack about, and then you're like, I got to change something. Something's got to change. Or maybe a new coach comes in and you feel all right, but then they have an opinion on maybe something that could change your technique. What is your sort of attitude towards that? Obviously, I think, again, it's such a personal thing, because, some people have the confidence to say, no, you're right. I appreciate the advice, but, I think I'm going all right. Versus, that's quite a good idea. I'm going to try that. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Well, I think what's really important there is just measuring your performance objectively. So objectively, so like, okay, I'm 100% sure that what I didn't do that game, and then reviewing that review that you've done by yourself with a coach. So, for example, Steve Kirby, top bloke, was the coach here during the Royal London after I got banged everywhere. And I was like, curves, to be honest, I think I thought about mixing my pace and I didn't do it. I just felt a little bit rabbit in headlights, and I really want to make sure that I want to do a grooving session with my cutters before the next game, so I feel confident to go to that if someone comes at me. And also, I'm aware that I'm going to have to park this because they were 100 and whatever it was, 110 for none off 10 overs at the start. So to a degree, I could have nailed my cutter and it's still been hit out of the park. So I think it's just weighing up whether you've executed your intention. So if I'm trying to bowl Yorkers and I keep bowling it halfway down, it's getting pulled into the Morrison's car park, I'll be thinking, okay, maybe I need to work on my Yorkers in this repair session, for example. But yeah, like you said, it's just important to weigh up that objectively and make a decision based on the evidence and discuss that with somebody else to get a clear overview of that. Or that's what my process looks like anyway, personally, is I'd weigh up what I did well, what I could have done better, and then a repair session to appropriately respond to that.
And what about your patience level? Because I'm impatient. I'm so impatient, mate. I want to be able to sort of fix something straight away and sort of on a dime and have something ready for the next game. What's obviously reflecting on that and understanding that patience and when success does come, and staying humble in that respect and understanding that the next game is the next game. It could go completely differently. What's your strategy towards that? Because you've had a lot of success very, very quickly. So how do you stay patient in the fact that you've still got a hell of a lot of breathing room to go to improve? And what maybe is sort of maybe a couple of goals that you have? Because, like you said, objective is one thing, but being able to think subjectively and being like, right, cooler, I want to have maybe this amount of wickets, or does that something that doesn't cross your mind?
Yeah, I try not to. It's a tough one, that. I try not to go too outcome-based goals, because obviously the control I have over those is less than a process-based goal. Like, I want to try and do everything I can, or I want to make sure every ball I bowl with has got a purpose. But I try and nail the processes anyway. I feel like that's pretty non-negotiable. If you're not trying to nail what your processes look like, you're not really doing everything you can to be the best you can. But in terms of goals that I have, I've talked a fair amount about how I want to bowl a ball at 90 miles an hour next year. Managed to get one at 89 in Cardiff on a wet one in Wales, so I was pretty gutted it wasn't over the 90 mile an hour barrier. But you don't.
I know the feeling, mate. Know the feeling. Not bowling 90 mile an hour. I know the feeling, mate. Not bowling 90 mile an hour, but knowing what it's like to be in a wet one in Cardiff, mate. Nowhere near, mate.
Yeah.
I suppose. How do you stop yourself then from thinking so much about the sort of subjective the sort of maybe quantitative data about maybe speeds too much, where you maybe you're hunting, maybe that's a saying I hear a lot, hunting for wickets, and sort of having that urge to hunt for wickets is such a dangerous thing to have.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with bowling with intent. I think it's just, like you said, about being logical. Well, I try to be as logical as I can about being logical and objective as to why you're bowling what you're bowling. So, for example, if just because you bowl with pace, it might be an absolute green nibbler and you go, I'm going to hit this bloke in between the eyes because I want to and because I bowl quick. It's like, but is that the most effective on this surface? Probably not. Or, I just feel like we need to make something happen. But they're going at 0.8 and over. Just carry on doing what you're doing. So it was actually Kazi that gave me this bit of advice. It's pretty simple, but it's very effective. Like, if something's working, don't change it. I've heard that so much. Like, I've spoken to so many experienced seasoned pros, and the amount that they say relative to if you're in a 50 over competition, for example, or you're even in a T20 competition and you're bowling at the top of the stumps, and because it's a green nibbler or because you're swinging it nicely, they can't score at a quick rate or can't keep up with the rate that's required. Just carry on doing what you're doing until you get hit off that length, and then you react and base your plans off, what you think is the best option from there on out. But I think it's just trying to be objective with what you're doing.
That's brilliant, mate. That's one thing which I want to ask you about as well is and we'll touch about it a little bit in a little bit. But what's like we've mentioned a bit with Riaz there, the one obviously she's professional for Pakistan. Like, what is your sort of your mentality towards asking individuals about questions? Because I know if I was in an environment like that, mate, I would not be letting anyone have a single space in room and asking them questions 24/7. So what's your sort of, is it having a specific problem then asking, or is it kind of doing it in advance and being like, right, no, I think I'm going to ask him a piece of advice just in case this sort of comes about?
Yeah, so for me, the things I asked Wahab about were the things he's exceptional at executing. So, for example, death bowling, or I'll ask him a question about reverse swing, because he executes reverse swing. It's a joke. So good at that.
Yeah. So good, mate.
Silly. And Yorker's same thing, like discussing with him what that looks like, how he got up to bowling high pace. I think it's just the way I try and look at questions is what can you not answer on your own? Because there's a lot of times I've gone to ask someone a question and then they've sort of given me an answer that you kind of already know. And you're just like, have I phrased that question in a way where I get an answer that's going to be really insightful and really add to my game? Or am I just asking a question for the sake of asking a question because, oh my God, it's Wahab Riaz. What was your favourite cricketing moment you've ever had? Like, it might be fantastic to learn that, but it'd be great to get to know him as a guy. But when you're only going to be there for 9 days, or was only going to be there for 3 days at one point, it's like, right, how can I be the most efficient with the questions I'm asking? What information do I need to know off him, and then work back from there, rather than what would be a good question to ask Wahab Riaz? Because favourite career moment, or things like that, or what was it like making your professional debut or international debut, you're probably better off asking, if you're angling that way, how did you manage your nerves when you were making your international debut, or what was it like coming through, etc., etc. I mean, I don't want to make one up off the top of my head because that'd be terrible, but completely contradictory to everything I just said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just being efficient with that and knowing, what information do I want to know, and then working back from there and trying not to be too
I think
annoying.
it's yeah. Mate, I swear I'm annoying anyway, so I don't really mind, to be fair. So I know I'm going to get the abuse anyway. But I think again, it's coming up with sort of quality sort of questions at that time. And I think I've been guilty of it in the past, is that it's got to be sort of volume asking questions. If you're not asking enough questions, you're not learning. But I suppose in a certain way as well, as they're sort of learning as well at the same time, aren't they? They're the ones that are actually still learning about them games. Even someone like Wahab, who's obviously now, I think, retired from international cricket. So he's, he is quite sort of, he's had a distinguished career already, but he's probably still learning and different things all the time. I mean, I'm surprised you're learning off him. I'm surprised that you're really learning reverse swing off him when you're the one that's actually bowled that absolute gun of a ball, mate. And I'll have to put it on screen, mate. I will have to put that on screen now, mate. I will have to put that on screen. But yeah, I suppose it's so individual. So, and speaking of questions for yourself, mate, these aren't questions for me, I promise. But questions from the public, mate. I started doing this segment a little bit ago and actually quite enjoyed it. Secretly, these actually all my questions, and I just want to learn a few. No, but so one of the ones which you got, and I actually quite like this one. I think this might be from a younger listener. So, what do you, as a young bowler, what do they need to do as a young bowler to make sure that they reach their full potential when they're older? So I'm guessing they want to know what they can do today, which is going to help them when they get to 19, 20, 21, maybe even like sort of late 20s.
Well, I mean, the fact that they're asking that question is already a fantastic start. So, I mean, like I've said, it's a very insightful question because you're trying to get a specific bit of information, which is, how can I improve generally? Like, that's an amazing question. Just before I answer it. I think just like I said, the fact that you're being really inquisitive is a fantastic start. Like, never lose that. It's so easy to, go along with the crowd, or, I'm a bit intense, or I'm a little bit too obsessive. Like, that separates you from other people. You're willing to do things other people are. Like, if you're willing to be upfront about that also, that's just an added advantage. So, I give it everything I've got, and that's how I think it should be. And I think in terms of direct improvements, just trying to do all the right things. So, like I mentioned earlier, are you eating the right things? What's your sleep routine look like? Do you have a regular bed and wake time? And then also, what is the period of time you're asleep for? Are you drinking enough water? What's your strength training look like? I don't know how old this person is, so I don't want to recommend that they just get in the gym and get jacked. But that's probably not the best option, just randomly doing strength
Look
training.
At Arnold, get a ton of protein, mate, and just hit the gym.
No. But yeah, I think it's just the controllables like that. So they're things that you can control. No questions asked. And then in terms of, from a cricketing point of view, I think there's a lot of interviews and resources out there. So like Sky Sports YouTube is great. So there's interviews with people who are far more experienced than I am, talking about tips and things what their approaches are, and it's from people who've been there and done it. So, they've got a bit of credibility. So like Mark Wood talking about how to bowl fast, he probably knows what he's talking about, I think. So
probably, yeah.
Rather than just random clips that you can come across. So it's just important that knowing the information has got a credible source.
Yeah.
But then I think if you're doing all those things right and you're trying to look for information where you can, then you will reach your potential. That's what it is. You're doing everything you possibly can in whatever situation that is. So for me, I was really lucky that I was at a school like King's where the facilities are fantastic, your coaches are fantastic, and credible. So that's a really big advantage, and there's no denying that. But I think it is just doing everything you can. So like I said, that sleep, diet, hydration. Are you bowling with a purpose? I presume it's a bowler, or even better, are you hitting balls with a specific purpose? What are you trying to get better at with each ball you hit or each ball you bowl? And then I think just keeping it as simple as that. And then I think referring to a coach in terms of more specific stuff. There's no point in me just labeling loads of random things about what help with technique. I don't think that'd be of any value, so I won't do that.
Yeah, mate, that's brilliant. I think that's definitely answered his or her question, so that's brilliant. So I'm going to merge a couple of points here because I'm aware that I don't want to take up too much of your time, Sonny.
No worries at all.
With his biology coursework. No, I'm only joking. So has there been one bowler that you've looked up to and tried to base your game around? And then has there been another person who has helped to inspire you, maybe away from cricket as well? So maybe a couple of people there to sort of maybe mention.
Great question. I think in terms of bowlers that I look up to, in terms of players right now, at the 19s we were asked who in the England squad do you currently look up to, and I tried really hard not to say Jofra Archer or Mark Wood because they both bowl rapid. Yes, absolutely, I want to be the calibre of player they are, but the only thing I've ever heard about Chris Jordan is about how professional he is and how diligent he is with everything he does. And I think that is, you can't get better than that. You can't, you talk about what high performance is. I don't think you can get better than having a reputation like that. Because, if you are truly doing all those things and you are getting the best out of yourself, I think that's more admirable than having a really, really high level of skill. And again, I'm sure Mark Wood and Jofra Archer are exactly the same. But I've just heard specifically about Chris Jordan a lot about how he, just how he does the right things, and is constantly trying to be better, and that's what his approach is. So I find that really admirable. And then in terms of players specifically, I really like Mitchell Johnson. I'm not going to lie. I know he's Australian. I know, but he is nasty, and I love that. The spells he's had at KP, just they give you goosebumps.
Classic, mate.
Just exactly. Yeah. You can't name a better more pump up spell of bowling than that.
Yeah.
Brett Lee would be another example. Talk about people to look at from a technical point of view, from a bowling point of view for a seamer. Pretty close to. I know there's no perfect technique, but he's pretty close. And I'd say Dale Steyn also in terms of how he, the energy that he bowled with, and the impact that has on the rest of the team is crazy. You can see it in all of his highlight clips. Everyone is straight in, pumped up as soon as he's bowling. Like it's exactly the effect that I want to try and have on teams. Same as Mitchell Johnson, just obviously in a slightly more, his approach is a bit more bully boy, but it is a similar effect.
Sweet.
Yeah. Ooh, it's gonna hit me in the throat in a minute. I'm very scared. Yeah.
What about outside of cricket? So obviously you've mentioned quite a number of people throughout the course of the episode having influence on you, academy during lockdown, or maybe even now in the professional game, having coaches, having been in the 100 for a couple of stints now. So what about outside of cricket?
I think probably in terms of like other athletes who I'd look up to. Obviously, I've already spoken about coaches who've inspired me massively. It'd be unfair for me not to mention just quickly before I answer this question, the senior bowlers at Somerset here. All of them have been amazing. I mean, Marchand Lang, obviously he's gone now, but he's gone to Gloucester, but he was a fantastic role model, and he was just an awesome top bloke. Like, he went to our awards evening at Torquay Cricket Club. Only about 30 people turned up, but it was great. But it wasn't quite 30, it was more than that. But
mate, absolute rig, mate.
Brilliant.
Absolute.
Yeah, and he's just a top bloke, like, lovely guy. Anyway, yeah, not a bad word to say about him. And yeah, from another like athlete's point of view, I've already mentioned about Johnny Wilkinson and Tiger Woods, like their approaches. And I mean, who hasn't seen the documentary Last Dance? Like, it's hard not to look up to Michael Jordan's approach and that, and how phenomenal as an individual, like in a team sport. You've got to say fair play.
Yeah,
I think those would be the like I said, I've already spoken a lot about coaches and also my parents, so I think that's probably the size of it, I reckon.
Brilliant, mate. And obviously it's pretty hard not to look up to Marchand Delanger's rig, mate. He's probably fit through a door. It doesn't fit through a door horizontally, so you've got to look up to the rig as well.
There's some serious stories of him in the weight room as well, like warming up with 40-kilo dumbbell bench.
I was going to say.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Fair play to you.
Mate, bicep curler, mate. Yeah. So I'll start with the 20s. Thanks, Marchand. Yeah, cheers, mate. So yeah, obviously to finish us off, because mate, I could honestly sit here all day. But obviously I understand you're busy. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to anyone who wants to be the next Sonny Baker, or anyone who wants to be the next fast bowler for their county, minor county, for their next cricket club, or anyone who wants to bowl 40 mile an hour quicker than myself?
Well, I think you're doing yourself a disservice there with the 40 mile an hour quicker. But I'll
just got into the 60s, mate. Give me a couple of seasons.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, like I said earlier, if you're doing everything you possibly can, like, just don't lose that. It's a real. I spoke to Shahbaz about this specifically. Like, you see it, or he said that he's seen it a lot more in the amateur game. The approach of, like, almost a desperation to succeed and willing to do anything to succeed. And I think that's the way you got to be. Like, I see that as the way you got to be personally. So I think if someone is like that, don't be afraid to operate that way. That's a massive asset and a massive skill. Like I said, if you think about true high performance and what, successful businessmen will be doing, they'll be up at 5 a.m. and scheduled all their day and working all day up until 9-10 p.m. and then boom, done, sleep, go again. And that's how you create success, by creating habits that are winning behaviors, not losing behaviors. And then, like, from that point of view, it's important to eradicate the losing behaviors also, because they can do you a lot more damage than the winning ones can gain you. So I think, like you said, it's just important monitoring what your choices are, how you operate, because that's the only thing you can control. Like, I could say a lot about, just learn how to get your wrist behind the ball, or learn how to, like, if you're learning to operate in the best way that you possibly can, that's the biggest advantage you'll have on anyone else. Like, that will carry over into everything. Skill, like I said, the physical attributes that you'll have, everything, mindset. Like, if you're explorative and willing to go to that place that other people aren't, that's a huge advantage. So capitalize on it. It'd be silly not to.
Brilliant, mate. What a way to finish, ladies and gents. Honestly, I can't thank Sonny enough for his time. Honestly, it's been brilliant. Like I said, could go on for hours. Cool. Thank you so much, Sonny, for coming on. Thanks for coming on, mate, and giving us your time. I'm honestly really incredibly excited to see where Sonny gets to next summer. Hopefully, again, maybe even a stint in 100, fingers crossed. Look forward to see you. Look forward to seeing you bowling some absolute rockets, mate. Thank you very much for coming on.
Hope so. Thanks very much for having me. Really enjoyed it.
No worries at all, mate. See you guys soon.